today we're going to talk about the Mastering Midlife podcast. So next week, we're recording this week. Is that Mary Dixon? Hey, Mary, how are you? Uh, Next week is episode 200. 200 episodes of the Mastering Midlife podcast. And one of the themes in the Foxhole has been just the fact that I've been experimenting. This is episode 53 of the Foxhole, right? So, and this has happened one day at a time for 2.5 months. One day at a time, 2.5 months. Anything that you're doing, you start it, and then all of a sudden time goes by and you've accomplished something. Same thing with the Mastering Midlife podcast. I had no idea I was going to be a podcaster, and now I am doing episode 200. Episode 200 means I've had 150 conversations. I've had 150 conversations with people who are experts in sex and intimacy and sensuality, experts in mental health, in dealing with grief, in dealing with addiction, in elder care, in finance, in productivity. 150 conversations with people who have had tragedy, triumph, people who are living living life. Hey, Kate. And after 200 episodes, which is going to be next Wednesday, after 150 conversations with these brilliant people, I have laughed. I have cried. I can't tell you how many times I have cried on the Mastering Midlife podcast. That's a hallmark of the podcast, is that we get to cry, because what I notice is everything comes out of people's tragedy, people's hardships. So today, what we're going to do is on the Foxhole. Let's see if we can figure this out. I need glasses for this. We're going to do the 14.5 things I've learned in over 150 conversations. The 14.5 things I have learned in over 150 conversations. And I have boiled that down to 14.5 things. So if you'll indulge me, here we go. You're going to be so smart after the end of this that I learned all this in hours and hours and hours of conversations. Hey, Kate, thank you for being here. You'll like this. Kate is my producer for my podcast. Without Kate, there would not be a Mastering Midlife podcast. I would not have had the confidence to do it, the ability, the capability, or the encouragement to keep going. So thank you, Kate. So number one of the 14.5 things I've learned in 150 conversations. If we're going to grow, change, shift, reach a goal, shed a habit, where if we're going to do anything, we need to be willing to be uncomfortable. We don't have to like it, but we absolutely have to be willing, right? Again, I don't pretend to like being uncomfortable, but I need to learn that leaning in, being uncomfortable is the way to be. I got to feel the ick. That goes for losing weight. That goes for gaining muscle. That goes for building a business, painting a picture, creating a marriage, shedding the stuff of the past. You got to be able to embrace the suck. That's just goes to go without saying with everything that we ever talk about on the Mastering Midlife podcast. Anything you see in self-help, all those books, everything, you got to embrace the suck. The next, sex and intimacy are not the same thing. I know, right? I didn't even know that. Sex and intimacy are not the right thing, not the same thing. Sex happens. Sex isn't that hard. If you're fairly attractive, if you're willing to lower your standards, you can have sex. If your hormones are raging, you can have sex, right? You can just use a computer screen. You can have sex. Intimacy is not the same thing. It's created. Intimacy and committed relationships are created through honesty, risk, practice, fun, surrender, and then rinse, wash, and repeat. Rinse, wash, and repeat. You can't do it once and then have an intimate relationship. This is an ongoing thing. And I will add that it's worth it. Working with a intimacy coach, working with a counselor has been really at 58 years old. I am learning how to be intimate for the first time in my life. And I got to tell you, I could cry. It beats plain old sex anytime. It isn't easy. It got to embrace the ick, to be honest, to create intimacy, but it's there. Number 3, grief is a real thing and it's an ass kicker. Grief comes in every flavor, shape, size, emotion. My ex-wife and I were talking about empty nest syndrome and how grief, and that empty nest syndrome shows up in different ways. Grief can show up as anger. It can show up as nervousness. It can show up as anxiety. It can show up as sadness. Grief is really, really, really tough. I don't like grief. I've had a few, people have seen me deal with people who have died. That grief, sadness thing, really rough for me. But feeling it, stuffing it never works. Resisting it never works. That's the only hazard with grief. Feeling it and allowing it out, no matter how it shows, is the only way through. And it may never, ever leave. Grief may never, ever leave. But with time and support and love, it will right size. I can promise you it will right size. The next, number 4, health, fitness, nutrition is a personal journey. I've had so many experts contradict themselves on the podcast, talking about all kinds of different ways of exercising, food, all that stuff. There is no one size fits all. There is no magic bullet. You're the test subject. You're the laboratory. Trial and error is the only way you're going to figure out your own health, well-being, fitness, and nutrition. You're the only person who's going to figure it out. There are experts, and a lot of them really are onto things, and they'll help you try different things to find out what works for you. There's a couple of common themes that I've learned about health and fitness. Learning to love yourself. Thank you, Nadine Larder. Learning to love yourself the way you are while you're on the journey is the key to long-term success. It is the hardest thing to do, but it will pay the most dividends, and it will help you with success. I also learned, and this was a hard one for me because I beat myself up over food all the time, stress overrides healthy food. Stress about healthy food overrides healthy food. That's me. I stress about my healthy food. It really doesn't do us any good. Gut health is totally overlooked, makes all the difference in the world. And then sleep is a superpower. This is what I've learned after 150 conversations. Now, you want to do keto, you want to go vegetarian, you want to do this. All of that is in your laboratory. Here's one I love, and this one was something I learned late in life. Women cannot be men. Women cannot be men. I've interviewed so many incredibly successful women who became successful and were succeeded, and they tried being men for a short time. They tried it, and they were triumphant, and they were very successful as women, as one of my friends called it, dude with boobs. But the sacrifices and the health challenges, adrenal fatigue, and all that were devastating to them. So every woman that I talk to learn through time and experience that being a woman is a superpower. And they can accomplish every level of success a man can, but they have to remember that they're women, embrace that they're women. And then they, because business is still heavily geared towards, it's a man's world. So there's skills that can be learned, and Mandy Lato and Shelley Paxson and Helen Appleby are just brilliant experts on how they embrace their femininity and their womanhood to be successful in what is deemed a man's world. It can be happening, and they're just incredible. Parenting is as individual as health and well-being. What I've learned about speaking to parenting experts is the instructions are written on the kid's butt. No question. Each kid is different. What is universal, though, is that the only way you're able to read those instructions is to deal with your own crap, to deal with your own past, to deal with your own projections onto your kids, to deal with your own fears. You don't have to be perfect about it. You just have to be honest and self-aware enough not to tattoo that stuff onto your kid, right? So dealing with your own stuff is the best gift you can give to your kid, so that you're not preoccupied with your own stuff and you can see what they need. Every expert I've talked to has taught me that. Here's another cool one. Getting to talk to so many incredible people, I learned that rock stars, NFL players, NBA players, elite soldiers, and even porn stars, I'm interviewing a porn star for the show, deal with midlife crisis, deal with being human, right? They just do. It comes with the vacation package here on Earth. If you're human, the vacation package comes with the stuff you have to deal with. And no matter how successful, no matter how pretty you are, you deal with being human. Here's one that really bugs me and really touches me, is that porn addiction, drug addiction, gambling addiction, workaholism, mental illness, depression are everywhere, and it touches everyone. It's rampant, and we don't talk about it nearly enough. And no matter how much we talk about it and acknowledgement and bring it out to the light, it's still not enough. It is everywhere. Humans are suffering in BMWs and multi-million-dollar houses, and they're suffering living on the street. The inner game, the decorations matter very little. What's going on in the inner life is everything, and you cannot tell by the window dressing how people are dealing and feeling. Number 10, failure and tragedy. Our lowest points come with incredible gifts. So I always ask in my podcasts, tell me your origin story. Where did this come from? Why do you care about this? And the story is always about some pain, something that happened, some tragedy, that their gift, that their expertise, that their passion came out of. Only every time. So it's really kind of an interesting thing to watch as all these incredibly beautiful, talented, amazing people came from something happening. Number 11, fear is the number one culprit of any challenge. Fear of success, fear of failure, disappointing someone, overshadowing someone, looking stupid, not meeting an obligation or a role that you're taking on, fear of a blank page, fear of creating. Every problem you face can be traced to a fear of not speaking up, of not accepting reality, of worrying about how you look, the what if, the what if, the what if. Fear, again, back to that leaning into the suck, dealing with fear is your way towards success. This is my personal favorite. And it's only one sentence. The hustle and grind crowd is broken and empty. The hustle and grind crowd is broken and empty. I will stand by that. It is an unpopular thing, but the hustle and grind crowd, if you're not up at 2 o'clock in the morning working, you are getting your lunch eating crowd is broken and empty, and I don't believe in it. And everything in my practice, everything in my coaching, everything that I do is going to go against that. Number 13, you need a posse. You need a community. You need people. There are very few true loners in the world. You need people to be able to do any of this. And it takes effort. I remember creating the people in my life, really working hard, and now I'm surrounded by people who I trust and love. You got to work and got to create people in your life, even if it's a small group. Hey, Ted Maylett, first time listener here. Thanks for being here. So building a posse, it may take years. It's worth it. You cannot do this alone. And then number 14, generosity and service are the way to true success and fulfillment. Only, always. I've talked to so many successful people. I've been successful myself. It's the only way to do it is to open your heart, be generous, and be of service. I have never, ever, 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 ever met a happy, greedy, rich person. Never. And I talk to a lot of greedy, rich people, and they look happy because of what they're driving, because of what they're wearing, because of what they're eating. They're not happy. And that's why I do what I do. Because that little secret, I'm picking up the covers and I'm telling the truth about it. Because there is a way to be happy. There is a way to fulfillment. There is a way to a rich life. And it's not through greed. So those are my 14.5 things, although I think there's only 13 things because I think I skipped number 7. Like I said, I was working on this till 5 seconds before the foxhole. But this is what I learned out of 150 conversations. This is what I live my life out of, the conversations that I've had and what I've learned from these incredible people on the Mastering Midlife podcast.